Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, Canada Missing Project, a copyrighted edition for our video channel. Welcome to a missing persons only segment. Appreciate you being here. It's been some erratic times, I gotta say, in the last several days. From the two sides of our world, things have been a bit distraught. But we're gonna get through this. And the way we're going to get through it is we're going to be dealing with facts. That's my world. So, let's get to it. Start with the letters. Hey Dave, hope you're doing well. I really enjoy seeing your videos. The cases are puzzling, and your factual news segments are very informative. It's very refreshing to hear you tell it like it is. Just a quick note. I wonder if some of the energy at Skinwalker Ranch is from the transfer of the magnetic field from the Earth's core going through the planet to ultimately end up in the magnetic field surrounding the Earth. Now, I do not have a PhD like many of the minds investigating these things, but maybe you could explain a few things like earthquake lights. Don't get me wrong, I know it doesn't come close to explaining the majority of things there, just a theory. How would it translate to 411 cases? I don't have a clue. I just haven't heard any theories on it, so I thought it was worth a mentioning. Thanks for all you do. Let's talk about that for a second. First of all, Skinwalker Ranch has a lot of anomalies that would be unrelated to a magnetic field in the Earth. I don't have a PhD either, but I have a lot of common sense and I read a lot. And I would tell you that magnets play a big key in our world, and that magnetic field is huge and it's important. But I don't understand much of what's happening at that ranch. But I will say this. Years ago as a policeman, I learned that criminals who do crimes on a regular basis, serial criminals, don't like to commit crimes too close to their home because they don't want to bring undue attention to their area. And I think that there's some truth to that when we talk about what's happening with missing people. And an unusual part of that is that area around Skinwalker Ranch has no missing people. But as someone from the government told George Knapp on a radio show, they believe that what's happening at the ranch has something to do with my work. Interesting. All right. Next letter, Dave. I've read a number of your books and watch your channel faithfully. Thank you. Your research mentions that people that go missing are often near areas with water, granite, and even in cities, among other factors. The people are often promising individuals with great potential or of Germanic backgrounds, as well as excelling in science in some particular field or another. I am of Indian family background, and I always despised the woods. And my father and family would often say that a man has no business anywhere near a tree line. Can you please elaborate a little about people and cultures who largely do not like the woods or forests, and types of people who are naturally repelled by being outdoors? I'm being very serious. I believe there's a certain type of character that likes the woods. I grew up being raised in a way that going to the woods was effing with nature, and man has no business out there. I don't know. I don't think I've met anybody that says that they hate going to the woods or they hate going to a national park. I don't think I've met that. I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't met them. And that doesn't really apply to our research because we have people that have disappeared in city settings, and I've written about those. So maybe this person needs to dig a little deeper because there's much more to our research than just the woods. Next paragraph. By deduction, what can we learn or understand by examining those who do not like the wilds and woods or national parks? Are we boring or not affluent enough? No, I don't think affluency has anything to do with going to a national park. I know that there are always anecdotal cases of ethnic minorities who go out there to the vast woods, but even according to statistics, the national parks are by vast majority frequented by white people. I understand that there are a token number of minorities mentioned who go missing, but I really believe this is largely a white thing. Regardless of that sounding ignorant or foolish, I honestly think that. I'm not wanting to get into a racial sensitivity thing. I'm simply being honest in what I can understand. In a 2020 study by the National Park, 77% of outdoor activities are undertaken by white people. I'm not debating that all types of people have technically gone missing, which is true. I'm not debating that all types of people have technically gone missing, true. But I'm sure your research finds a massive number of white people are those who go to national parks. I grew up in a neighborhood with Asians, Indians, and blacks. Not a single person I met or went or wants to camp or hike. Well, maybe that's the people you're with, but I go to campgrounds all the time. I see nationalities from all over the world in a national park. So I think your assumption is incorrect. I've been in some areas of national parks where the majority of the people there were a minority. So I don't believe that. Not a single person I've ever met. When I watch your videos, I'm always thinking, what the F you are these people going out there in the first place? They're going out there because they want the serenity. They want to be around the beauty. They want to see wildlife. I think that's pretty easy to understand. I find your research interesting, and I'm not a closed-minded jerk. I really want to know your views of race and the phenomena because 77% of white people going out there. Yeah. I truly wonder why the dynamics are the way they are. Again, I'm not arguing that ethnicities don't go missing or don't camp. I just want to know about the large disparity in interest and volume that skew white culture. Well, if you're talking just about the U.S., look at the propensity or the demographics of the number of white people, the number of black people, the number of Hispanic people in the United States, and then compare. Next letter. Hope the snow finds you physically well and spiritually at peace. I think so. Spiritually at peace? I try to be. I try to be. Think of your son Ben often and consider him so blessed to have had a dad like you. I've watched a few shows dealing with mediums for entertainment value mostly, as I roll my eyes and murmur, "Oh brother," under my breath. That said, there does seem to be a couple of them who are legit, who work without pay and seem to be kind and caring. You have said often that if a medium wanted to help you, they didn't need to contact you. Just go out and find one. I agree. But I've noticed that mediums often seem unable to control who comes to them. Maybe many of the missing can't come to someone like them because they are not dead. Well, first of all, I know a number of psychics from years past, from decades ago, that work with police and found bodies. So I don't think they have to be in that position that you just described. If a person walked into another plane of existence or were taken off-world but remained alive, their spirit is still with them. They haven't left their corporeal existence, only their location. Also, if it is true that their spirits were taken from them, as some people say, then they aren't floating in the ether or present in heaven or whatever you believe, but contained somehow. I believe in God, so the idea of my spirit being taken away from me and my God and interrupting the natural way of passing from mortality to heaven is horrifying and incomprehensible. But wait a minute. But what if you go to hell? You're talking about your ideas and your theories about heaven, but what if you went to hell, which is part of the belief system? I'd like to think that God would intervene, but he doesn't intervene when bad things happen. Exactly. He allows free will, even if a person's choices are evil. The Lord doesn't punish us for things we might do, but for what we have actually done. Believe that God is God all over life, wherever they are from, and is subject to his law. I know he has created worlds without number. The idea of beings that are not from this world seems logical to me, but also know that throughout space and time there are only two powers that influence sentient beings. One is good, the other is evil. Every world will have these two powers evident among their inhabitants. I do not believe that ETs are demons or angels. Okay, stop. A large portion of the village would disagree with you here. Evidence suggests that ETs are physical beings. They are corporeal and angels, and demons are not. Also, they, like us, will be influenced by good or evil. How do you know that? How do you know how these people think? Or how these entities think? How do you know that they can even absorb your thinking power? What if they were programmed not to be influenced by anyone or anything? You don't know. Do you think Vladimir Putin is influenced by the people in his community? I don't think so. To imagine any race of beings to be all good or even all evil is naive. So much for Stephen Greer. Anyway, concerning mediums, it is my belief that they can't find all of the missing because they are not all dead. Then just find one. Just find one of my missing people that I've written about. Well north of 1,000. If they were valid, find one. None is unacceptable. If mediums are true, then go find one. I'll make you a hero. I'll put you on stage. I'll take you with me on tour. None of them have found anyone. Just so you know. And I'm not being hard on anybody. I'm just being factual. I've had a lot of psychics and sensitives approach me. I tell them the same thing. When I was fresh into this, and I guess naive and innocent, I engaged a few, and boy, they took a lot of my time, and we got nowhere. That's where I came to the position, with the assistance of others, that I'll be polite to them always, and I'll give them information, but they don't need information. My books are out there. All the information they need to find somebody is right there. And my books have been out there a long time. Where are all the bodies that these people say they can find? If they're really good, go find somebody. But when you listen to what some of these people say, they talk in circles, or they talk in vast generalities. I wish there was a psychic out there that I could go to and they could direct me to a body. I haven't found one yet. Next letter. Heard you the other night on Coast to Coast AM, as well as on a number of previous occasions. I want to thank you for your work as well as your years spent in law enforcement. That said, I want to offer a few insights into the missing person situation. I'm a political, intel, and occult junkie. Probably should check into rehab for one of these. And I've given thought to these disappearances. I'd like to offer a suggestion that you check to see what the moon sign is and what the disappearance. That might provide a clue. Well, people, I wish some people would read our website, because somebody did a study of that. Website, Can-Am, like Canadian American, canammissing.com. A lot of information there. In addition, you mentioned airplane crashes being associated with many of these disappearances. It is well known that UFOs can interfere with planes, so that lends some credence to the fact that perhaps there could be some ET or ultra-terrestrial involvement, especially as some of the people are found considered distances from where they were taken. I've stated that before. Or we should watch our videos. The portal theory appears to be very plausible in some of the cases, and I also believe some portals do have the ability to move, which could also account for why some people are found a distance away. I've stated that many times. Also wanted to mention, for which I find very interesting as well as suspicious, the U.S. Forestry Service over the past half year or so has been airing radio commercials encouraging people to visit their forests. Their last two commercials are specifically targeting children, which raised an eyebrow, especially with so many people disappearing in forests. In any event, I hope my info will be of use to you. I wish you'd read our website, watch our 220 videos, and then come back to me. Because maybe you'd have some theories that were even better. Thank you. Hi, Dave. I read a lot in the area of psychology, and I found this little gem, and I thought you would be able to make good use of it. It's from the book Rape of the Mind. Quoting, isolation and the patient repetition of stimuli are required to tame wild animals. The totalitarians have followed this rule. They know they can condition their political victims most quickly if they are kept in isolation. This is how the government powers that be are using the virus to control and indoctrinate the masses. I followed your research and have found it most rewarding. Thank you for all your efforts, and God bless. I read that and I thought, wow. That's like an epiphany. But I thought he was right. They have you in the home, and you're without your outside distractions, friends, neighbors, walking out to buy a newspaper, seeing the sights, coming home and talking to your spouse about what happened during your day. All those things are gone. Now you have your four walls, you have the boob tube, you have mainstream media. Stay away from that, folks. I know there's a large percentage of you out there that are still watching ABC, NBC, CBS, and you're just getting absolutely mind bent with garbage. You need to stay away from it. I've told other people that I probably, in the last month, on average, get 50 different news sources before I start to form a theory. This is true. And I spend a lot of my day doing research on missing people, and that has news sources involved. And I see what they're reporting. And I like to get news from other countries. Now, Canadian news is just governmental news from Canada. It's hard to find a good source out of there. That's one country that is just absolutely in trouble. But those are the facts. Next email. Hey Dave, a couple of weeks ago I finished Missing 411 Law, and today Missing 411 North America and Beyond arrived. I'm diving into it tonight. One of the things I like about your work is you present the facts. As an academic with a PhD, I've read too many works where authors present theories with no evidence or references to support that theory. You don't present some wild theory, but just give the evidence and let the readers draw their own conclusions. This is what a true work of scholarship should do. Since I discovered your work in May, I've seen your videos and documentaries, and I've read 4 of your books. Keep up the great work. Okay, this is a good introduction. Probably 2 or 3 times every video I get a comment, well, what's your theory about this? What do you think? What does it really matter what I think? Because whatever I said, it'd be a guess. I honestly think that a lot of these questions come from people who are just looking to attack, demean, embarrass. Find one little hole in the theory and then just dig it into a gully. Well, true researchers, just like that man said, don't propose a theory unless they have facts to back it up. I don't have any facts to back up any theory. I do think that there are different things happening with different events. I don't have an overall theory. I wish there was one. I think in individual cases, in certain areas, it might be leaning to one thing or another. But to classify it all under one umbrella, I couldn't do it. It may upset some of you, but I want you to engage your mind. I want you to think for yourself. That exercises that thing between your ears. And we as humans don't get enough of that exercise. Get off of TikTok. Get off of Instagram. Get off of these things. Get off of playing games online. Exercise your mind. Become educated. Do something positive for the world. And what is that? Become educated to world issues. Because then you become an advocate for truth. The people that sit back in their high and mighty positions in the world and spout things that are just totally not true, it's embarrassing. There's a man graduated from Berkeley, and there's another man that graduated from Stanford. And the man graduating from Berkeley, even though he's liberal leaning, has written me a series of things saying, Dave, I didn't realize this. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize this. And he at least reads to understand, not read to not read to respond. And there's a difference in our world. Listening and reading to understand. The other man from Stanford. Now, folks, I went to Berkeley for my undergrad. And then I went to University of San Francisco to finish my college studies. I wasn't privileged. My folks weren't wealthy. My dad was a fireman. I wish I could have gone to Stanford, but I couldn't. Now, the person who went to Stanford writes to me routinely and basically berates me on a regular basis. Calls Montana the Politburo. And this person fails every time I send him facts to even acknowledge the fact, which is a routine response from people who have cognitive dissonance. They can't accept the way reality is. This one person constantly attacks me that my thinking is askew because I'm presenting these facts. I actually feel very sorry for this person because academically they're brilliant. Common sense, debating, I'd kill him. I'd kill him in a debate. I'd love to debate the guy. But he'd never do it. Because I'd sit there and I'd say, but this is the truth. Next. I've watched all of your YouTube videos over and over again, except for your two movies, as I'm punished for free thinking and no longer have an account to be able to watch them on YouTube. You don't need to watch them on YouTube. You can go straight to Amazon and watch them. I've not heard any one of your listeners mentioning the possibility that time runs different in a portal as it would be a wormhole or somewhere with a gravitational field. Great point. Great point. As I've told you before, I've spoke to physicists who say that other countries are working on the portal theory and trying to weaponize them. It's true. So, what if you were put in a wormhole and time ran at a different speed? Say it was slower. Say you aged much slower. Or you aged much faster. That would have some stress on the body under possibilities. Because what was manipulating time? Now, maybe that stress on the body is what causes people to come back deceased in some instances. And coroners can't find the cause of death. I don't have any idea. Just speaking out loud. You mentioned how people are found weeks later, yet only died a day or two earlier, according to coroners. Maybe when they got caught up in the portal, they died right away. Possibly. Perhaps time inside a portal is non-existent and suspends you in a time like in a time dilation field would. It would explain how the coroners would determine that a missing person has been alive for 3 weeks, which would then when the portal held them in a suspended animation of sorts before spitting the body back to our Earth. This would explain the confusing life and death determination. No, it would. I agree. And that's definitely a possibility, if that is true about portals. But then again, I don't know. But it's something to think about. Now today, I'm going to talk to you about 3 different stories. 3 different people. 3 people quite different. The first one has to do with a story from January 1st, 1938. An individual named Woodrow Locke, L-O-C-K-E, 33 years old. He worked on a place called Montezuma Mountain, and it was called the Montezuma Mountain region of New Mexico. He was very dependable, ultra stable, and very smart, according to a 7-year employer of him. Part of his job was cutting wood. So he would hike out from the ranch, sometimes miles, cut wood, and then they'd bring a vehicle, get it, bring it back. Well, one day, a horseman was riding a fence line, making sure a fence was in shape, and he came across Woodrow sitting under a pinyon tree, whistling. And he was whistling, "Listen to the Mockingbird." And this man stopped and listened to him, and he was a phenomenal whistler. And he talked to him. And Woodrow said, "Yeah, I'm just taking a break from cutting some wood." And, his comment was to this fence checker was, "A lot of people make a lot of money whistling. Maybe I could get there." And the guy said, "Well, he's pretty good." Now, the fence repairman came back 2 days later, and he saw a series of clothes spread out in the area under that pinyon tree where Woodrow was located. And about a quarter mile away, he found some gloves and some other things. Well, Woodrow's camp was 2 miles from this location. So he rode back to camp, got a hold of the owner, and they started a search looking for Woodrow. 100 people. 100 people for 1938 in this part of New Mexico is pretty amazing. Now, the camp where Woodrow was right here. This is White Sands Missile Range and Holloman Air Force Base right here. This is the Mexico border, and this is the Arizona border. This is New Mexico. They found his body about 2 miles away through nothing but an open desert. How did he get there? Well, they found some barefoot tracks around where his clothes went missing. Or he took his clothes off, or however his clothes got off. Then they interviewed some people asking if they'd seen him. And they found a rancher a couple miles away who heard some screams on January 1st. Now, during this search and about a week later, they find his body naked, also about 2 miles from camp, out in the middle of the desert. They didn't find any tracks going to the body. And the coroner stated that he died of exposure. Okay. Well, they found him on the Chupadera, Chupadera, Chupadera Mesa. That would have been west of camp. He was found January 8th. Now, a couple things. At camp, they found his car. In the trunk of the car, they found all of his supplies that he would need to live, keep warm, etc. He kept them locked in the trunk when he was gone. 2 miles is not that far, folks. And for Woodrow to die of exposure that close to camp is amazing. Now, some people say, well, he got hypothermia and he started stripping his clothes. One problem with that theory: hypothermia doesn't happen within minutes, unless it's minus 50. But that wasn't the case in New Mexico. It was cold, but it wasn't that cold. He could have just walked back to camp and he didn't. What happened to him? Why would he strip off his shoes, his clothes? Why? He was a woodcutter. He knew this area very, very well. He had lived it and worked it for 7 years. He wasn't lost. This is one that's always bothered me, because there's no easy answers on this. No tracks, loss of clothing, loss of shoes. Dies 2 miles away in the middle of the desert. What would he even be doing there? There's no trees to cut. Yeah, exactly. But it goes and it follows that missing 411 path we've talked about before. It's something that is peculiar. Even if people push the agenda, oh, hypothermia and he's stripping clothes. I have dozens and dozens of cases where the clothes were stripped close to where the person was last seen, and there was no time for hypothermia to set in. That's what skews the agenda here. But keep these items and these facts in your thoughts, because it's important. Next case. Inez Miller, 95 years old. 95. First of all, friends, the most spry 95-year-old person, how far can they travel on foot? Think about that. Inez Miller, a very, very, very nice lady. That's Inez. Missing March 10th, 2000, from Mayesville, South Carolina. Last seen about 3 p.m. on that date. Healthy. She lived a lifetime at 3905 Mount Sinai Road. Or correct that, Mount Sinai Church Road, Mayesville. She had hearing loss. There was thick foliage behind her house that led to a swamp, about 2,000 feet behind her house. It was called the Hope Swamp. Her home was 15 miles south of Florence. She'd been a widow for 37 years, but she didn't live alone. Her son, named Burl, lived with her. She went missing on a chilly, rainy afternoon. Now, Burl got home early on March 10th. Walked in the home, door was unlocked, same as normal, and found her purse in the normal location, nothing was missing. Searched the yard, called relatives. Nobody said they knew where she was, and then called the sheriff. Neighbors said that they last saw Inez at 3 p.m. that day. The sheriffs responded with helicopters, canines, forward-looking infrared radar, ground troops that pounded the ground around there. They brought in 3 dogs that stayed in that area for days. And the searchers said they ran the dogs to exhaustion looking for Inez. Now, this is a picture of her home. Can you imagine living in a home for 95 years? That's amazing to me. Now, in the back, there's a place back here called Hope Swamp. But you can see the grounds around the home are pretty well open, clean. The swamp is the key, I believe. Now, do I believe Inez went voluntarily into the swamp? Heck no. But that's the key to this case. Now, to give you some kind of overview, this is Florence, Quinby, Woodland Park. Mayesville's up here. This is the resident, Mayesville right here. This is the residence. This is the Atlantic Ocean, Georgetown, Litchfield by the Sea, Plantersville, Hopewell. Lots of water in the area, especially at the swamp point. Now, if I was to search and rescue people, there's only a few choices here. Somebody abducted her and murdered her. Chances, probably about 0. Why would anyone want to abduct a 95-year-old woman? Think about it. Who was hard of hearing. She wasn't a wealthy lady. So I think that's about 0. She got lost. That's about 0. She lived on the property 95 years. She knows that property like you know the inside of your bedroom. She wasn't lost. She had no dementia. Throw that one out. But the real question comes in that environment, with dogs on the scene so quick, why didn't they pick up a scent? That's troubling, really troubling. Now, personally, I would have thrown all my resources on searching into that back swamp area. She's obviously not in the front area. It's wide open. The mailbox was right in front of the house. She had to have been in that swamp somehow, or near that swamp. But why? I can only tell you that many people that I've done research about ended up in the swamp, or right next to that swamp in water, or next to the water. It's troubling. I have great compassion for Inez's son and the rest of her family. She was a good woman. I wish I understood what happened, but I don't. So the next case, from Yosemite National Park. David Paul Morrison. This is the flyer that was put out by the National Parks Special Agents Department that are doing the investigation into David. Let you look at that. Missing May 25th, 1998. He was 28 years old. He was a chef in San Francisco. Previously lived in Fresno with his family. He went on a Memorial Day weekend to show his girlfriend how beautiful Yosemite was. He'd been there many times. Well, on this day, May 25th, he rose at 5:30 for a planned climb of Half Dome. Yes, Half Dome. He told his girlfriend that he'd be back by about 3 p.m. 4 p.m. he didn't return. Clouds started to move into the valley, and it started to rain. His girlfriend contacted the National Park Service. Dave was described as a hiker and outdoorsman, very healthy. Well, as the evening progressed, rain and snow started to hit. May 26th, 5 canine teams arrived, along with a CHP, California Highway Patrol helicopter with FLIR. And they started to look. They found tracks near the bottom of the climb of Half Dome. China Mountain Rescue arrived with 20 searchers. And guess what? They reported problems with their GPS units. I've told you before that electronics issues in relationship to these searches often happen. Well, China Mountain Rescue actually reported the failures of their GPS units. It was a very, very odd occurrence. But not uncommon, but odd. It's odd to read these things. It probably happens many, many more times than I'm told, because searchers don't want to talk about failures. It's embarrassing to them for some reason. But they found some tracks of David's near the bottom of Half Dome, near the start of the climb. Now, the climb of Half Dome, you walk along on solid granite, and there's a chain that you follow with your hand as you go up, and that's your safety device. A lot of people have disappeared on Half Dome, but then again, a lot of people have disappeared in Yosemite. There's a lot. When you're in the basin of Yosemite, you're surrounded by granite. And as many of you know, granite has unique and different properties. Very unique. And what runs through the bottom of Yosemite Valley? Merced River. And there's a lot of lakes all around Yosemite. And a lot of people have disappeared from that area. A lot. It's the #1 place in the world, according to our profile points, of people who've disappeared. Now, is that to say that you shouldn't go to Yosemite? No, I'd go. I have been, and I will continue to. But I practice safety. What would that be? I carry a personal locator beacon everywhere I go. I carry a firearm wherever I go. I'm very careful about who I'm with and who I can trust. And I care about the locations I go into. And I don't go into them unless I've done research into it. But Half Dome, it's an unusual place. Dangerous. I don't know what happened to David. And the Park Service hasn't given any theories as to it. But when you think that David disappeared over 22 years ago and nothing's been found of his body, that's troubling. Because canines should pick up his scent. Even if he's deceased, that scent trail would have been in the air for months and for miles around that location. Miles. Cadaver dogs can pick up a cadaver scent miles and miles away. Yeah. So, Yosemite, David Paul Morrison climbing Half Dome. His girlfriend didn't want to go that day, unfortunately, and he climbed it alone. Yosemite National Park Service tried to find witnesses that saw David on Half Dome, and they didn't find any. But they believe they found his tracks at the bottom of Half Dome, meaning he was there. But you're not going to find any tracks on Half Dome because you're walking on solid granite. But Memorial Day weekend, with a lot of people in that area, it's surprising that someone didn't see him. But then again, I don't know the entirety of the effort that the Park Service made to find a witness. You know, did they walk the campgrounds, interview all the campers in the area? I doubt it. But that would have been about the only way to do a thorough canvassing to find witnesses. So those are the 3 cases. David Paul Morrison, never found. Inez Miller, South Carolina, never found. Woodrow Locke, found naked in the middle of the desert, missing clothing, missing shoes. Died of exposure. I've explained to you many times the theory on exposure and GHB. It's not a theory. It was a fact. The people, young men who disappeared in Wisconsin, on second autopsy, they found high levels of GHB in their body. Fact. No theory. But I appreciate you being here. We need to grow this village with like-minded people. Those like-minded people are found through you, through your friends, through your relatives, through fellow hikers, hiking clubs. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I've never given you a theory about anything. Anyone who says I'm spreading conspiracy theories, they're liars. And you know that. So all the people defending me out there and telling the truth, I greatly appreciate you. I hope we can keep pushing this village to grow. All of you are important to me. I appreciate the comments you make. I read them all. And hopefully, if God's willing, I'll be here with another video soon. And the biggest favor you can do me is watch the video in its entirety. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm humbled that you're here. Do something kind for someone that you see today. Anyone. And it'll make your heart feel better. And we'll do something good for our society. Stay strong. Love your country. Love your family. If you haven't done so in the last week, call your kids up, tell them you love them. Paulides out.